it's a celebration. It's Four Swords Adventures Week. It's 20 years of Four Swords Adventures. We'll talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, the legacy of Four Swords Adventures and whatnot. But yeah, I guess just to kick us off here, Al, maybe what we should do is talk about like our very, very, I guess, first memories of the game. And mine is a little bit dicey, like I feel like, because I think like a lot of people, when this game came out, I wasn't quite sure what it was. Like I knew it wasn't like a big new 3D Zelda like Twilight Princess or Wind Waker or anything like that. But I also knew it wasn't like a little add-on game like the original Four Swords was to A Link to the Past. And I think that confusion unfortunately stuck with Four Swords for its entire life. But
Yep.
what are your first memories of this game? The first time that you heard of it, the first time you saw it, and the first time that you played it, actually.
Well, it's kind of funny. I feel like as I age, my memory of this changes, or either I remember more things or I forget more things. I want to say the first time I heard of it or seen it or played it was like a family friend. You know, one of those close family friends that they're your aunt or uncle, and then their kids are your cousins. So myself, my brothers, and my cousins were playing it. And it was very brief. It was not very in depth, but I do remember like very vaguely playing it with them, kind of being upsetting because we were kids, you know. So when you would like mess around with each other, it's not as fun. You're just like, "Hey, jerk, stop messing with me." And that was kind of the extent of my memory of this game. At
Yeah,
least like first like initially.
yeah. I'm with you. Like I remember seeing it in the pages of Electronic Gaming Monthly, which I used to love that magazine. I used to get that magazine all the time, probably up until like 2004 ish. And yeah, like I said, I was a little bit like what is this game? I'm not really sure what this game is, and furthermore, I think that I was really confused by how you were able to play it. I didn't
Uh-huh.
know if you could just play it single player because I had of course purchased A Link to the Past, which came with Four Swords on the Game Boy Advance, and that was the
Yeah.
first time that I'd played Link to the Past and whatever, and I always really really wanted to play Four Swords, but you couldn't without all the different gimmicks, right? Like the different connector cables and blah blah blah. So I wasn't quite sure if this game was like the same kind of thing or not. If like you also needed well, let me rephrase that. I knew that you could play it with friends and that if you could get the same gimmicks and the same
Yeah.
connectors and whatever, but I didn't know if you could play it without that. And I don't think that Nintendo did a very good job of kind of telling people like, yeah, you can play this single player if you want to. So I think that was one thing that confused me, and we'll talk about that when we get into the game's legacy. But so I didn't end up playing Four Swords Adventures for a long time, like a
Yeah.
long time, like probably when I joined Zelda Dungeon is the first time that I played that game. And so when I joined Zelda Dungeon, and particularly when we started doing this podcast, I was like, okay, if I'm gonna come out here and talk about Zelda every week, like one, I should probably play all the Zelda games that I haven't played,
Right.
and two, like it'll give me more stuff to talk about. So I ended up playing this game, and you know I really love it. But really I think the first real big exposure that I had to it was at the Zelda Dungeon Marathon, where I played like a significant portion of the game in 2018 because I hadn't really
Yeah.
played a lot of it. So I remember playing that, and then that experience. I think if I'd have played it multiplayer or single player first, like multiplayer with like I don't know friends or something like that, I don't know if that would have been if I would have such a fondness for this game because the Zelda Dungeon Marathon, surrounded by Zelda nerds, with
Mhm.
all the gimmicks and all the peripherals and all the TVs, that really is like the optimal way to play this game, and that's a
Mhm.
way that like 99% of people don't really get to experience playing it.
Right. Yeah, I was gonna say like the real like set in my memory time that I played this, and it was like you, it was like a significant amount of playing it because I hadn't played it really before, and also not a lot of people were volunteering that year. I think it was 18 also that I played a lot. Where I just kind of came in and was like, oh,
Yeah.
I'll play this round. Oh, I'll play this round, and it wound up being like a really big portion of the game. And I would agree, like that would be the big stuck in my memory, like actual experience with this game. And it's so much fun. There's so much craziness going on, and you're just messing with each other. And Josh is just exasperated in the corner trying to guide us,
Yes.
but like he's so annoyed that we're messing around with each other, and he's like, oh, just Village of the Blue Maiden or whatever is the one he really had to help us with, or
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just such a fun time. And you're right, like so many people don't get, like a lot of people don't get to experience it that way.
And that's really the way, like, it's the optimal way. Like, you're surrounded by friends who love Zelda, that are knowledgeable about Zelda, and are having like a good time, and that really is like the pinnacle of how you should experience Four Swords. You know what? I'm glad that you brought up Josh too, because I was going to shout him out later, but I'm just going to shout him out right now. Yeah. So, and Josh is a lot like Four Swords Adventures in some ways. He's kind of like the unheralded hero in a lot of ways of Zelda. I mean, he really is. Like, if I was to say Josh's name, I don't know that a lot of our more casual listeners to the show or to like the website would know who Josh Zielinski is, but this guy has been with Zelda Dungeon for forever. Like, what I mean, like 16, is it 16 years?
I don't know, 14, 15, 16, one of those. Something
outrageous, like a long time. Yeah. He's been here for forever. He had a huge hand in writing all of the different guides, and he'll hate me for saying this, but he's a prickly sort, right? But he's a softy inside. Like he really is. Like once you get to know him, he's a big softy. And he is like, he specifically wrote the guide for Four Swords Adventures, and every year whenever we play this game, it's just like a bunch of schmucks like me and Gooey and Al or whatever, just like trying to mess with each other. And Josh is like, come on, we need to get to the level, stop going into the spotlight, no, don't go that way. And it's like sometimes he's a little bit heated about it actually, but like sometimes it's good fun too, to the point where he just like picked me up and started carrying me so that I couldn't mess around anymore.
Just get it over with. Yeah.
Yes. So Josh, it's funny because I think of Josh when I think of Four Swords Adventures, and a lot of times, which is actually, I even just asked Josh, hey, what's that level with like the big fire bombs with the ropes and stuff? And he's like, oh. And I was like, okay, thanks, buddy.
Just imagine him being like, oh, Andy, God, like,
So I wanted to give a shout out to Josh. I can't wait to see Josh again in August. We're gonna go Culver's, and that's our new proud tradition. Me and him go to Culver's. We don't have that up here in Canada.
I don't have it here either. So Culver's.
I think it's just a Midwest. This is a sidetrack, but why do they call it the Midwest? It's really in the center of the states. It's not like the West.
I think only Midwestern people can tell you that. I don't know.
Okay. So anyways, if
I'm Pacific Northwest, so
yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, I'm just Canadian. That's like our blanket. Like, if you're Canadian. Yeah. So I wanted to shout out Josh Zielinski, who wrote, I mean, one of the frankly only like Four Swords Adventures guides on the internet for a long time, and still has like an incredible encyclopedic knowledge of the different levels here. So that's actually a thing that I really love about this game as well. But yeah, one of my favorite things about playing Four Swords Adventures is just like getting to the marathon, messing around, and everybody's just like, God damn it, Spiteri, like quit goofing around or whatever, stealing other people's forest gems. I love it, and I really love this game. Is just like, it's so fun and chaotic and wild when you're playing it multiplayer, but like really structured and really puzzle heavy and really intricate when you're playing single player. And that's another thing that I would say to people as well, is like, I don't know, again, kind of going back to my point, Al, like I don't know if a lot of people know that like you can play this single player, and like it's not like, it's not as optimal. There's some clunky spots like switching between Link or whatever, but I think that this is like a really fun experience single player as well. I know we've talked about it before. I don't think you've ever played like kind of through the thing single player. Is that correct?
I have not, but I would love to. I pretty sure I have the game. I would just need to dig out like my Wii to play it, because I don't have a GameCube. Because I think it's on GameCube.
Yeah, you're right.
The disc that I have. So I would need to dig out my Wii. and that's a chore. So I would just personally love it if they would put it on NSO already. Like, why not?
Oh, yeah, we'll talk about that later, but I couldn't agree more with you. But yeah, so I'm gonna tell a little story here. And actually, this is kind of appropriate because we are on the 4-year anniversary of the COVID-19 lockdown. Um,
Oh my God, we are.
right?
Jeez.
Like, isn't that crazy?
Back in the day when they were like, by the way, you're gonna go home for 2 weeks, and also Animal Crossing came out at the same time, so I was already home for 2 weeks.
Yeah, Animal Crossing literally holding the world on its shoulders. Um,
Yeah.
so I didn't play Animal Crossing, but like everyone else, I was locked up and didn't have anything to
Mhm.
do, and I was in my hazmat suit whenever I went outside, and so I decided, like, I don't know, like I got nothing else to do. I'm getting paid to be at home and not do anything, so like I'm gonna start rebuilding my GameCube collection that I had when I
Mhm.
was younger, and not only that, but I'll add games that I want to play. And so what I did is, I bought a bunch of different games or whatever, and the prices for GameCube games were like super high at that point. But I was like,
Mhm.
whatever. And so one of the games that I picked up was Four Swords Adventures, and I bought it from a nice guy, and I think I've told this story before. This is how I got Tingle's Rosy Rupee Land, actually,
Oh, that's right.
that little buy and sell group that I was a part
Mhm.
of. So I met a guy. I drove over to his work, and I met him there. We kind of did our social distancing, whatever. Like, you got the money, I got the game, and I ended up actually only paying $40 for Four Swords Adventures, which is a steal right now
Wow.
because I just saw
Yeah.
somebody list it for like $100 the other day.
Mhm.
So yeah, that was I got out Four Swords Adventures, and I busted out my Wii. I busted out a GameCube controller. I busted out an old purple memory card, and I plugged it in, and I played it start to finish single player, and I was like blown away by how good it was. Like, because I don't think that when a lot of people think of Four Swords Adventures, they think that it's a good single player experience, or even two, that you can play it single player. So that
Mhm.
always really stuck with me as well, and just like how different the games are when you're playing with friends and when you're playing solo. So like there's a lot. I guess I bring that up just to mention, I think that there's like a lot of like really good, I don't know, utility, I guess, in this game. Like, you can play it in a bunch of different ways.
Mhm. I agree. I would love to play it single player someday. Again, I think I'm gonna wait until it gets ported in some way, which I think it should. But from like when you do play together as a team and you're not going for the chaos, like it's still even fun then because the
Yeah.
teamwork is really cool. And like I feel like there are points when we do stop goofing around and we're like on it, and it's usually Josh is guiding us, and I'm like, okay, everybody follow Josh, and we do.
Yeah.
And it's like really cool the way the puzzles are built to work together as a team, and I love that. Not saying that I don't love the chaos too. That's also very fun. It's like the game has so many different elements where you could take it very seriously and it's still such a solid Zelda game, but you also can have fun and be competitive and mess with each
Hmm.
other. So that it gives it different elements, as you said.
And I think the game really lends itself well to all that stuff that you just said, just by virtue of like kind of the presentation of it, because it's like, I really love like the style of this game, because it's like that 2D, like Link to the Past, Minish Cap, but also kind of like the fun Wind Waker esque vibes to it as well. So like,
Hmm.
you can have like the best of both worlds almost, where like you can have something that's really fun. Like, I don't know, I feel like the game, the way it looks, just lends itself really well to like, you could be fun, you could be serious, it could be intense. Like, it's just a really cool game. And I will say that like one thing that one of my only, well, not my only critique, but one of my critiques about the game, which is ironic because I think it has great music, but I wish it had more original music in the game as well.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
um but yeah, like I think that the presentation is great, the music is great, and like the gameplay itself, I think, is like really really fun,
Hmm.
actually. And it kind of looks like when you play Four Swords of, like, if you were to watch someone else play Four Swords Adventures and be like, this looks like a little gimmicky, like when you go into the house and then your other screen pops up and blah blah blah, like.
Hmm.
But man, I think it like really works, and like the way that you can only have like the one item, and you got to be strategic with like which link is going to carry that one item, and what are you going to do with it, and the way that you have to work together in order to like do complete certain obstacles or puzzles. it's just like it's classic Zelda, but like in a different way than most other games have ever tried in the series. And I know that I'm not kind to Triforce Heroes on this show, but I just like I look at some of the puzzles in that game, and they're so pedestrian, in my opinion, compared to some of the stuff that you can do in Four Swords Adventures. That it always frustrates me. Where it's like, man, why don't we just make another one of those? Like, just have the same, like, have a new one with new levels, a new, I don't know. So I think that it's like just such a. The gameplay I think is like so classic Zelda, but like so unique as well that I really like love the formula and wish that they would bring it back.
Yeah, I feel like they tried with Triforce Heroes. They tried to bring it into the new age where you didn't need all the components to play as a team. But even then, it was still kind of difficult because a lot of our friends, right, that we know play Zelda are all over the place, and these were kind of region locked, right? Like I couldn't play with you, and up there in we couldn't play together. I could play with a couple of my friends in the States. And then additionally, like it was not good single player. It didn't have that kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? It didn't do well as it did in Four Swords Adventures. Like, yeah, you say it's still clunky, but like this is so clunky that's unplayable. It's so close to being unplayable, it's not even funny. And then on top of that, they had like I would agree that some of the levels are not as fun or as maybe as clever as Four Swords Adventures, but I do think that there are some parts that are still a lot of fun. It had more original music. It, like it tried in a lot of areas to evolve and improve off of Four Swords Adventures, but maybe it could have taken what Four Swords Adventures had already given us and just not evolve, but make those things better instead of trying to evolve into like what they did.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, like I think like for the simplicity of the gameplay, but it is fairly simple, right? Like you can only have one item. You have a very limited amount of button movements. Like there's nothing like in Minish Cap where you can upgrade your combat, where you can, you know what I mean? Like it's fairly straightforward. But I think that just like that really works for this game and lends itself to the puzzle aspect, but also just lends itself to like the crazy like competitive aspect as well. And I guess let's talk about that, because I think that like really adds a lot of juice to Four Swords Adventures, where like you can compete for Force Gems and you can, and like none of those show up in single player, which I guess makes sense, of course, because you're just one player that's going to get them. But it's like it's got to be one of the most like replayable Zelda games because of that. And if it were more accessible, like you could just quickly pop over a level, play with some friends, and like, I've got the most Force Gems this time, like sucker. I love the way that like after you're done a level, you can like vote for like, okay, who was the best person, who was the most annoying person, like who was the MVP. It's just like it's so charming to me, like everything that this game kind of presents and everything that the game does. So I really do think that this is like one of the most underappreciated Zelda games that people unfortunately don't play a whole lot, and we'll get to why that is.
I wanted to talk about really quickly, like I feel like I say this a lot for like Spirit Tracks, where the game is clearly made for kids, but there are like gimmicks to it that I'm like, I don't think a kid could put up with this, which is like the flute, obviously playing the flute. I'm like, what? And maybe I just don't give enough credit to kids. I personally feel like when I was a kid, there's no way we would have had the patience for that. But I think about that with Four Swords Adventures. Like this game was created for kids, but I think like the being able to mess with each other feature kind of messed with us as kids. We didn't really have a lot of fun with it because we were doing it too much and we couldn't get anywhere. Like we were just because we were kids. Our attention span wasn't like, let's finish level. It was more like, I'm going to mess with my brother. But so when you're an adult, I feel like you can appreciate these things more. And also like the setup too it seems very complicated for kids. But when you're an adult, you can appreciate this more because you can think, okay, I'm going to mess around, but there is a goal that I need to like reach. And so I feel like we have a lot of fun playing with it as adults, but I don't know, going back to my experience, I don't remember really having fun with it as a kid. And I don't know how many kids really did have fun with it. Maybe I'm not giving them enough credit.
No, I would say you're probably accurate. Like I see what you're saying, but I don't know if I would necessarily say this is like a game intended for kids. Like there's some hard puzzles in here, like really complicated puzzles. Like Village of the Blue Maiden is a pretty notorious puzzle, which we'll talk about in a second. But like that's a pretty tough level, and there's a few like that, and there's some. I mean, the boss fights aren't like ultra challenging, but like they're challenging enough, right? Like it's not a pushover game. So like I definitely see like what you're saying, but I think that like this has got like the same level of difficulty in regards to like puzzles specifically that you would expect like your average Zelda game to have, if not more difficult in a lot of ways, because now you have the added element of like there's not only one Link, but there's 3 others that you got to coerce and get into the right spots, and you got to have the right items, and you got to know kind of where you're going. It's tough, and again, to shout out Josh, like that's why a lot of people struggle with this game, and like why he's always kind of like the
he's kind of stuck there with us.
Yeah, he's like the grandfather, just be like, all
Even
right,
if
kids.
He's not playing, he's there to help us.
Yes. So it is like it like again, like I think that when people maybe like newer Zelda fans think of like multiplayer Zelda, they're kind of thinking of like Triforce Heroes, which has very, very basic levels. Like you usually get onto one screen, there's one puzzle that's pretty easy to do. You get to the next screen. On the next screen, there's a new puzzle. You do it, and then you go to the next screen. Where like Four Swords Adventures is like a sweeping like map. Like the levels are fairly big, and like you go back and forth and to and fro, and like you connect the whole. Like, it's almost like every level is like a little dungeon, actually.
Yeah.
Which I love.
Would agree.
Hey, everyone. If you enjoyed this clip and want to see more of the Zelda Cast, make sure to head over to your favorite podcast platform of choice and subscribe. There are over 200 episodes in the vault that will provide you with hundreds of hours of Zelda content for you to enjoy. You can listen to us when you're on a walk, fighting Ganon, trying to sleep, whatever. And if you want to see these shows as they happen, make sure to head over to twitch.tv/the Zelda Cast, where you can watch our beautiful faces talk about Zelda every single week. Don't miss out, and we'll see you next time.